boy spots a strange shape under a bridge. When he takes a closer look, he immediately breaks down. Every kid wants to do something heroic, whether it's standing up to a bully at school or being the voice of reason in a dangerous situation. Gerald Withers discovered the hero inside when he spotted something on the side of the road and decided to do something nobody else would. Gerald Withers was like any other 11-year-old boy. He had to deal with the usual responsibilities like doing chores around the house and keeping his grades up. But on one day in November 2017, everything changed, and he was faced with life-or-death circumstances. Also, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell to get inspired by these real-life stories every day. Now, back to the story. Gerald lived in Festus, Missouri, where nothing really ever seemed to happen. He never expected to find himself in this kind of situation. Gerald was more worried about whether the Green Bay Packers would win the big game that weekend than anything else. He had no idea that his life was about to change. Gerald was on his way home from school. He looked out the bus window, watching the world go by. The bus was about to drive past a nearby bridge. That's when Gerald noticed something that caught his eye. He pressed his face against the window to get a better look. Gerald saw that the guardrail looked as though something had driven straight through it. It was bent at a 90-degree angle. He figured whatever had happened, it had some serious force. Why else would the guardrail be bent so severely? As the bridge drew closer, Gerald saw what looked like scraps of metal and machinery scattered near to the side of the road. He saw some kind of shape laying in a field. It looked like a deer or maybe some sort of animal. Gerald sprung up from his seat, heart racing. Something was definitely wrong. He sprinted up the aisle and told the bus driver what he'd seen, but it was no use. The driver thought Gerald was exaggerating. He admitted that something was certainly lying in the field, but it looked like nothing. The bus drove right past the scene. The bus dropped Gerald off at his usual stop. Still, even when Gerald got home, he couldn't stop thinking about what he'd seen. Someone or something was out there and in desperate need of help. Gerald was beginning to panic. He needed to know what had happened. Gerald's mom, Brandy Overturf, noticed that her son was acting differently. She sat him down and asked what was wrong. Gerald told his mom about what he'd seen on the bus window. He began to tear up as he explained how the bus driver ignored his pleas to stop the vehicle. Gerald said he feared that the worst had happened. Brandy knew that even though kids tended to have wild imagination, she knew Gerald was being deadly serious. She believed that he'd seen something worrying, and if anything, she wanted to soothe his worries.
He knew deep down that it was something. It was not a deer. He went with his instinct.
Brandy and Gerald got in the car. Gerald told his mom where he thought he'd noticed the broken guardrail, scrap metal, and the mysterious shape. Gerald became more and more anxious as they raced down the highway. On the way there, Gerald began to doubt himself. Had he really seen anything at all? What if all this was for nothing? He didn't even know if he would be able to point out any of the strange things he'd seen. Then, Gerald saw the broken guardrail nearing in the distance. He was right. Brandy and Gerald parked the car and hopped out onto the road where they examined the bent guardrail. That's when Gerald once again saw something far away in a ditch. Brandy and her son hiked down the steep roadside toward the field. That's when the two of them stumbled upon something that chilled them to their bones. The scattered remains of a destroyed motorcycle spread along the road in every direction. The wrecked bike, the broken guardrail. Brandy and Gerald knew there was just one more part of the equation, but they were afraid to find out just how bad it was. Suddenly, without warning, Gerald turned on his heel and sprinted away. Brandy called after him. She noticed he was heading toward the ditch. Brandy sprinted after her son, who was making a beeline for the ditch. Soon she realized why as they approached. Brandy saw the shape of a motionless body. Brandy didn't want her son to be scarred by the sight of a gruesome accident. She thought about shielding him from the cyclist who was wearing a helmet but didn't appear to be moving. Gerald, however, sprung into action. Gerald tried not to be fazed by the terrible accident that lay before him. He knew what he had to do. Gerald grabbed his mom's phone and immediately dialed 911. When the paramedics got to the scene of the crash, Gerald and Brandy were relieved to find out that the motorcyclist was still alive. However, he was barely breathing. They managed to identify the motorcyclist as a man named Billy McMahon. The ambulance rushed him to the hospital in an effort to save his life. All Gerald and Brandy could do was wait. Gerald's grandfather Bob happened to be an avid biker himself. He tried to comfort Gerald that evening while they waited to hear from the hospital. It was obvious that Gerald had done everything he possibly could. Bob's words were cut off by the phone ringing. The hospital told Gerald that Billy was going to make it. They said he would hopefully make a full recovery. Gerald was also told that were it not for his determination and actions, Billy would have been dead for a number of reasons. When Gerald's school bus had first driven past the fallen biker, he'd been lying in the ditch for hours on end. If Gerald and his mom hadn't gone back to investigate the situation, Billy would have frozen to death overnight. Luckily, Gerald had gotten to him in time.
Just crazy to think about that he could have died, and that he's alive right now is really good, cool.
With that in mind, the town wanted to give back to Gerald for taking action. They banded together and thought of a surprise for Gerald that would show their appreciation. Festus hailed the 11-year-old as a town hero. Gerald was even gifted tickets to a St. Louis Cardinals game by a stranger named Rob Bass. Even though Gerald obviously hadn't helped the biker for the attention, he was over the moon about the kindness shown by his community. In fact, the story continued to spread. Soon, Gerald's story had made its way to Wisconsin, right to the office of the Green Bay Packers. They wanted to thank their fans for being so brave and ended up sending Gerald an autographed photo of Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback, along with a whole box of official Packers gear. Still, Gerald knew what the real reward was. Gerald's biggest achievement was being able to save a person in desperate need of help. Even though Gerald was only a young kid, he saw that his bravery and courage impacted the life of someone else. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider sharing it with someone who may find it interesting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.